Okay, just to get rolling, we've got our first speaker this afternoon. You may know that the Kenyan Anti-Counterfeiting Authority has really taken a strong hold on counterfeit products. It's become such an issue in Kenya and for both consumers and entrepreneurs. And Alicia Kabini will be taking us through the developments in Kenya to try and combat these counterfeit products. Alicia Kabini is a partner and a trademark attorney who recently joined the anti-counterfeiting department. She also specializes in trademark litigation, including oppositions, cancellations, and their related interlocutory applications in South Africa and other African countries. So without further ado, Alicia, over to you.
Thanks, Maureen. Afternoon, everyone. I was saying during the break, I am the Portugal-Fiji game, and everyone else seems to be at the Scotland Island game listening to the AI talk. So thank you for joining me here this afternoon. As Maureen was saying, counterfeiting is quite rife in Africa, and the Kenyan Counterfeit Authority has taken quite a unique or first of its kind approach concerning counterfeit goods. So question one is, do you trade in Kenya? Yes, no, maybe. If you do, then you need to be aware of this fairly recent development in the Act. It's the first of its kind. Ordinarily, counterfeit recordals are voluntary, but Kenya has recently implemented a law in terms of which it is mandatory to record all your trademarks with the anti-counterfeiting authority there. So if you can imagine St. Peter sitting at the gates of heaven with his list, the ACA is sitting at the gate of the Kenyan border with their list, and if you haven't filled out their forms, there will be no entry to you. So as I've referred to the Anti-Counterfeiting Authority, the ACA, they are the gatekeepers to the Kenyan ports and all incoming borders there. The ACA was passed or came into being as a result of the Counterfeit Goods Act, or the Anti-Counterfeit Act, sorry, I'm thinking of ours, that was, although it came into effect in 2009, it actually only came into operation in 2010. So I'm sure that's how our government feels about trying to make the new doping regulations come through. Everything takes very long, so that might take a while. When you are asked to do something, the immediate question is why? So Simon Sinek, I'm quite a fan of his, says, start with why. That is how you explain the purpose and the reason and why you exist and why you do certain things. And if you understand why, it might be easier to trudge through the painful administrative process of something. As Maureen said, I've recently joined the anti-counterfeiting department. But before that, when I was a candidate attorney about more than 10 years ago, I was in the counterfeit department. And what we used to do is count handbags, clothes, apparel. And what surprised me now about the counterfeit department is now you've got counterfeit oil, bearings, solar panels, things that cause danger and that are a health risk. We're not just talking about fake clothes and CDs on the side of the road anymore. So for that reason, Kenya has adopted a quite an aggressive, first of its kind approach to say, everybody must record all their trademarks with the ACA in order for them to be able to determine whether the goods entering their borders are counterfeit goods or original products. Yeah, we've got it out of the word of the acting executive, out of the mouth of the acting executive director of the ACA to say the purpose of the recordal is to facilitate access to information for enforcement officers on goods to be imported into the country, which will enable both customs and border officials to proactively identify and seize counterfeit goods at the border before they enter into the country. So now we all know why. We know the why. So hopefully we can get through the how. As I mentioned earlier, the Anti-Counterfeit Act only came into force in 2010. So when we wanted to bring in this new mandatory recordal, we needed to have an amendment to the Act to enable us to do so. The amendment came through the way of Section 34B of the Anti-Counterfeiting Act and its accompanying regulations. Section 34(1)B says trademarks relating to goods to be imported into Kenya, irrespective of their place of registration, shall, not may, be recorded with the agency in the prescribed manner if the registration is current. From this, it's quite clear that it's not very optional. You don't have a choice. If your goods aren't recorded, they're not coming in. It's very much a no-go scenario. And the information that needs to be recorded is the information that will allow the authorities to identify counterfeit goods. But before we get there, here's my picture. I like it. Let's look under the hood and see how the mechanics of it all works. Step one was who will record all your information. So before you get to what information, it's who will do it. Phase one of the recordal process was rolled out on the 28th of February. It related to the agents that could record information with the ACA on their online system. Of course, our very clever Kenyan colleagues decided that us South Africans shouldn't be able to do anything. So they ensured that in order to be an agent, you needed to have proof of membership to a statutory professional body in Kenya. Those are the only people who can become agents. There are other requirements. You need a valid power of attorney in the form ACA Form 15. Once you've submitted that form and complied with other requirements, you would be registered as an agent on the system. That process, as indicated, has been done and dusted, so the system is very much up and live. Then the next step was to record all the information, to submit it. So now you're wondering where we're going to put all this information. The information is going to go onto an electronic database known as the ACA's Integrated Management System. Fortunately, there's abbreviations for everything. It's called AIMS. So the ACA's AIMS portal online is where you will upload your information so that your goods can pass through the Kenyan border post. So now you need to know, okay, when did it start? Like everything, it was supposed to start in July 2022, and then it moved to January 2023. Now you've got to submit a whole bunch of pieces of paper. What do you need in order to file your recordal? You need the name. So who is it? Is it Bayer? Is it Nestle? Is it Coca-Cola? Do you have a valid registration in Kenya? Yes, no. If you don't, sorry. If you do, then welcome. Details of the manufacturer of the product, the foreign entities. So the purpose of that information is when you get your distributor or who's making the products, as the information gets to the ACA, they know what information to be on the lookout for, who to be on the lookout for, what the goods are, what the goods look like. They need all of that information to make their jobs as easy and smooth running as possible. Once you've given them the information, they'll think about it. There's obviously an approval or rejection process. It's not automatically accepted. The ACA substantively considers your application to make sure that you've complied with all the necessary requirements. And if you get an approval of your application, you will then get a recordation certificate. That certificate will be valid for a period of 12 months. Here is the list. Attorneys love our lists of the exact information that you need. I think there are 13 items on the list, including samples of the photographs of the genuine products, how the goods look, who manufactures it, the tax registration certificate, a lot of detail. Once you've done all of that, then we get to phase three. Phase three is yet to happen. So assuming that you have now registered your trademarks with the ACA on their AIMS system, what they will then hope to do is stick a barcode. There's our barcode on each product. And then when you are in the marketplace, you can scan the barcode, because we all have cell phones in Kenya, smartphones, where you can scan the barcode and then determine whether the product that's in the marketplace is an original that came through the system or whether it's a counterfeit. So obviously, if you scan it and you get information, you're A for away. If you don't, what you're then purchasing is a counterfeit. As I say, I'm back new in the team, and I'm amazed at how sophisticated the counterfeiting has gotten. When we were doing it, you were looking for obvious spelling errors and things that anybody could tell that this is not an original product. The counterfeiters have become as sharp and smart as we are. So this is a good system. Once it does work, to be able, the ordinary consumer, to determine whether the solar panel you bought is an original or whether your house is going to go up in flames. So now we've got to who can submit recordals. Unfortunately, there are lots of distributors and retailers, but the only person who can do it is the brand holder. So it is for the brand holder to take the initiative and record their systems with the ACA. Can you register services classes? No. How are you going to put legal services on a boat? You can't. So it's obviously only for goods. What if you don't do it, if you decide no ways? It's a lot of effort. It's an offense to import goods into Kenya if your goods aren't on the ACA systems and without bearing all the necessary documentation and submitting everything. So yes, the recordal is mandatory. It's the first of its kind. It will work wonderfully once it works perfectly. But like everything in most things, it's in its teething infancy stage, so there are some problems. We'll get there later. So I've been referring to this, the trademarks. I've been specifically mentioning trademarks, but the Act does allow for intellectual property rights, the much broader term, which includes copyrights, patents, designs. Unfortunately, the AIMS, that online system where you're going to submit things, has not been geared up, and there's no process practically in place to record any of the other forms of intellectual property rights. So for now, we're all stuck with our lovely trademarks. Score the trademark attorney. Sorry for Dani and them. So that's where we are. If you think of your product and what trademark must you register, you're like, oh, there's Nestle and they've got lots of brands. Do you really? Godfrey was saying somebody's got 4,000 trademarks in their portfolio. You can't be registering 4,000. So it would be a good idea that when you are getting involved in Kenya and you need to register, is to give your packaging to your trademark attorneys and they'll help you figure out what to do. So for example, Nestle only has to register Nestle and not Nestle and Kit Kat and Nestle, provided that, you know, the house brand that you're registering is on the actual product. The point is identification. So you can't have some obscure Coca-Cola Pty Limited at the back of the bottle and then not register Fanta. You all need to register that trademark as well. Local trademarks, international trademarks, we love IRs, or sometimes we do anyway. International registrations designating Kenya are of legal effect, so you can rely on those. You don't necessarily have to have a national Kenyan registration. The recordal process is for 1 year, as I mentioned earlier. Similarly with the agents, they're all for 1 year, then you renew. Just to mention before I go to your further questions is the system is currently down. So we have a whole bunch of clients who have given us all the information. It's sitting with our authorized agent in Kenya, good and ready to press a button so that it can go when the system goes back on live. It's not at the moment, so as I said. It will work wonderfully if it works 100%. It's not there yet. But if you are interested in Kenya, please come speak to us so that you can know what you must record, when, as soon as possible is the answer to that question. And once the system goes live, it will be very difficult to get your goods into Kenya if you have not followed through the recordal process. And I'm early, I deserve a prize. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alicia. That was very insightful, and I'm glad that it's the first of its kind. So we're moving in the right direction. We just needed to get it to work.
All of the time.
Yes. Do we have any questions? I'd like to start off with our virtual attendees. Do we have any questions? Okay, none. And do we have any questions from the floor? Okay, there's a hand first. Comes to you.
Hi, Alicia. Well done. I just wanted to ask a question on phase 3. I know it hasn't yet been implemented, but practically speaking, how do you barcode every single product? Is the manufacturer going to do that, or are they doing that in Kenya?
The idea at the moment, Karima, is that once the goods arrive at the port of entry, is that the customer officials will unpack all of it, barcode each one, and then pack them back, and then allow them into the market. That is a practical difficulty that I also foresee lots of problems with. So probably that's why phase 3 is not yet implemented, and they might change that once it actually has to happen. But yeah, that's what they're thinking of doing.
Hi, Alicia. We've got a question from a virtual attendee. They'd like to know What are the costs involved to record products?
I would be guessing, so I'm going to default to my colleague over there in the audience, Mr. Bedeli, and he can give an estimate of the costs.
Thanks, Alicia. The costs depend on the number of trademarks that are included in the recorder. The second determining factor will be whether the recorder is based on the local registration or international registration, and how many classes of goods will be covered in that particular recorder. At this point in time, we are working on USD 750 per mark, per class. But if it's one trademark with additional classes, we are adding an additional $45 per additional class.
So my question is this, is that I think it's a fantastic system. We know counterfeiting is a massive problem in Africa. We need stricter border control. We need to be able to fund the border control. And if it works 100% perfectly, it sounds like it's going to be quite a good solution. Getting to the resources that are required. So let's say, for example, how many trademarks we're looking at? Let's say we look at South Africa, maybe must be 30,000 trademarks, 20,000 trademarks filed per year, I imagine. And let's say even 10% of those are recorded at customs. Looking at 2,000 trademarks per annum registered at customs. This is going to require manpower to do the checks, to satisfy the requirement now they're obligated to do. Do you foresee, is there a groundswell of assistance coming in to Kenya to fund it, or is it funded by the process? I'm just interested to know what that next step, how effective is that next step going to be?
Darren, thanks for the question. So as we know, the current administration in Kenya has just recently taken over. And from what we understand is that the Ministry of Finance is backing the system, and therefore they have actually allocated a much bigger budget to the ACA to appoint more resources in the form of inspectors, not only to inspect the consignments that are coming through, but also to assist with putting the barcodes as well as QR codes on the items that will be coming in. But of course, to think that they would have enough manpower to achieve what they're hoping to achieve at this point in time, we don't believe that they've got enough manpower. The resources that are there for now, they're assisting with investigations. Some of them are assisting with legal requirements and assessing the matters before they're handed over to the NPA. We have seen some delay, and precisely because there's not enough manpower. But from what we understand is that the government is promising that they will allocate more funding that will enable the ACA to have more resources. Whether that will become reality, it's a wait and see game.
Lots of questions. That lady with the, yeah.
I just wanted to ask, if people are so good at counterfeiting goods, why can't they just counterfeit the barcode?
That might be a problem that we face down the line. And the ACA would then have to improve their systems and their technology to circumvent whatever counterfeiting of the barcodes that might happen, or probably happen.
I really do think it's a great concept. Like you said, if everything works out wonderfully. My question is around when do you guys anticipate the system being, up and running efficiently and effectively? I understand that, currently a lot of things are still pretty much work in progress.
I mean, I'm going to say how long is a piece of string.
Yeah.
Godfrey does this every day, which is why he's answering all the questions. But I think it will still be some time before the system is completely 100% running. I wouldn't want to commit to a time period, but I'd say at least another year. Godfrey's happy to elaborate further.
Thanks, Tseho, for the question. It is true. We simply don't know. The reason why the system is not running at the moment is that there is a contractual dispute between the ACA and the software developer. And it looks like the issue is around the payment and updating the system itself. So we don't know when that issue will be resolved. And as you know, we have already filed some of the applications last year. As Alicia indicated, they are valid for 12 months. We are already at a point where we should be able to renew some of the recorders that we filed last year, but purely because the system has not been working since January up to today. So there is internal discussion within the ACA as to what should we do with the renewals. The indications are that they will be issuing a fourth public notice as to what to do with the renewals, and simply because they don't know as to when the system will be properly up and running as efficient as it should.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time for questions. We can, if you do have any further questions, we can take them up with the presenters afterwards. Thank you so very much.